Welcome to the Champs App podcast, where we help parents and players demystify the world of minor hockey development and recruiting for both girls and boys. On today's episode, I have Sarah Zacharias, who is the head coach at Balmoral Hall Prep School in Winnipeg, Manitoba. We talk all things player development during their time at Balmoral Hall. We also talk about the similarities and differences between prep schools in Canada compared to those in the United States. And finally, Sarah shares her role in helping her seniors all find a place to play at the next level when they graduate. I really enjoyed this conversation with Sarah, and I hope you do too. Before we get to our guest, if you like this episode and want us to make more of them, please share it with friends and teammates. You can also follow, subscribe, and like, and even better, it would be great if you could leave us a review. Now, let's drop the puck and get to the show. I am delighted to have Sarah Zacharias from Balmoral Hall Prep Hockey. It is a prep school in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and she is the head coach there. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, Ray. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here today.
So excited to have you. As we kick off, why don't you just give us a little bit of your hockey history and how you got to be the head coach of the Balmoral Hall Blazers?
Yeah, thanks. It's a pretty cool story. I'm actually back working here at Balmoral Hall. This is my alma mater. I graduated from Balmoral Hall in 2008 after playing for the prep team that I now coach. Following my high school career here at BH, I went on to play Division I hockey for Niagara University. They have since folded. They folded actually the year that I graduated, but I had a tremendous experience playing Division I hockey through college, and then came home. I graduated with a degree in sciences, thinking I was going to go on to med school. But as soon as I came home, I met with the former coach who helped me out to get the position here as the assistant coach. And as they say, the rest is history. I fell in love with what I was doing, helping players try to achieve the same goals that I once had. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So like you said, this is my 7th year now here with the team, but my 4th year as the director of hockey and head coach. And it's just been an honor and a privilege to be able to give back to the girls and help some of them realize their own goals.
So for the listeners who don't know, maybe give a little bit of background about the team, where they play, what you've done the last 4 years with the team, because I know there's been some successes there. So I wanted to elaborate a little bit on the Blazers since you've gotten
absolutely.
there.
Thanks. Yeah, we've been around for 15 seasons now. The team started the year before I joined, so it's been around for quite some time in the world of prep hockey, at least in Canada. And we joined the JWHL, that's the Junior Women's Hockey League, that's comprised of teams all across North America. So we have teams in Boston, North American Hockey Academies in our league. That would be a team that's very well known, at least in the American cities. And then teams in Canada like Ridley College, Pacific Steelers, and just kind of all over North America. And basically our team goes to different league weekends, which also amount as showcase weekends for us. So we'll go to Boston a few times a year where we'll get to play against all the other teams within our league, as well as showcase our skills to all of the scouts that we invite out to come in and watch us play. On top of that, we'll go to various, highly reputable showcase tournaments throughout the season as well, being things like the NAHA tournament, the NAHA Labor Day Classic that happens in August, as well as the Junior Women's Hockey League Challenge Cup, which happens in Washington, D.C. in January each year. So those are tournaments that we're able to be a part of because of our league. It's really incredible league to be a part of, very competitive. You have really top-end players and teams. Every day you have to show up and be willing to battle and fight to get wins. And we were really excited 2 years ago in 2018, for the first time in our program history, we won the JWHL, and that was an overtime win against NAHA, who's probably our biggest rival. It's a lot of fun playing against them. They're one of the strongest teams from the American standpoint. We tend to be one of the stronger teams from the Canadian side of our league. So it's always a good game when we match up against them. And otherwise, our history of this program has really evolved over these last 15 years. We have seen over 20 players go and play for their national team, most of them being Canadians, but we've had a Czech player that's gone on to play for her Czech national team. We've seen over 84 of our graduates go on to play post-secondary college hockey on scholarships, whether that be NCAA Division I, youth sport here in Canada. And overall, over $6 million of scholarships have been awarded to those 84 grads, which is a huge number when you look at that breaking down just amongst 84 players. So we're really proud of the program and the successes that our players have had. And the biggest one as of late was that at the last Olympics, we had our first ever BH grad play for Team Canada at the Olympics. And that was my former teammate, Bailey Bram. So it was a pretty full circle moment for me to see a player that I grew up playing with and then playing against in college, because we played in the same conference in the CHA, to watch her go and put on the Canadian jersey at the highest level that all women dream of getting to, and very few actually get that opportunity. So that's just a little bit of history of BH kind of in a nutshell for you.
That's awesome. So most importantly, can you explain to me what a blazer is?
It's such a good question, and one that it's debated constantly, because if you see our crest that we have here, our slogan is Meloria Pentens, which means seeking better things, and the banner is held by a blazer or an eagle. But we also, for our school uniforms, we wear blazers to school. Our prefects wear white blazers, and then regular students wear green blazers, but that's a part of our number one uniform is what they call it. So the blazer itself is argued that, is it the blazer jacket that the girls wear? Is it the eagle on our logo? Or is it the fact that they believe that Balmoral Hall girls are trailblazers, and that we try to set the precedent for women everywhere? And I think there's arguments and strengths and weaknesses about each one. So my personal, just because I'm the hockey coach and I wear the crest, is I think it's the bird. I think it's the blazers, the eagle, but that's, I guess, to be determined, and nobody really knows.
Great. So talk to me about playing girls hockey or playing prep school hockey in Manitoba or Canada, and how that is similar and how it's different from, what we see in terms of the club and the prep school programs in the US and the boarding schools in the US.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of similarities. I think more similarities than differences between Canadian and American prep programs and boarding schools that offer maybe sport options. So, our girls have the regular school day, just like any other student at our school would. Probably one of the only differences is that they get to leave school a little early, 1 hour early every day to get on the ice for hockey. And because of that, they get to miss phys ed. They don't take phys ed at our school because they get so many hours in on the ice every single day with us. But that's pretty similar to what I think most American prep school programs do. It's different from program to program and province to province and country to country. So I know that there are lots of prep programs that run, half school days where they're online classes or they do correspondence courses and focus on a bigger majority of their time on the ice, perhaps. And we don't necessarily believe that that's the best route, at least from a female perspective. I'm not venturing to say that I'm an expert in the male game, but I do know that there is a lot more financial revenue available for male hockey players that play at the highest level. That's, obvious. For females, it's a little bit more the idea of hockey being almost a means to an end. You look at your opportunities from the game of hockey, and they're all going to amount to you potentially getting to have a scholarship for university. And if you're lucky to play further than that, playing on one of your national teams is great, but it's never going to be a full-time job, at least not in the current climate that we're at right now. Hopefully things are going to progress and change. It's 2020. Things are moving in the right direction. But at the moment, women don't have the ability to earn a full-time income and a comfortable lifestyle off of playing the game of hockey. So I think most girls try to look at this as an opportunity to play at the highest level, advance their athletic abilities to potentially play on a national team one day. But further than that, it's really the backbone of the development of female hockey is to get a good education so that one day when you are finished playing the game, you're going to have an incredible career to fall back on. So I think that's where our school really focuses our energy on developing them first as students. And I say, 1A, 1B. Our school would say first as students, second as athletes, but we're trying to develop them in that full picture. So the big difference, though, when we look at the bigger picture of Canadian to American prep programs, is I think the idea that American programs really focus a lot of their attention on watching players at a younger age. Lots of colleges will recruit players younger and younger, and I mean the pendulum kind of swings in this rule, and I've seen it happen as a player when I was growing up to where I am now coaching, that more and more kids are getting recruited at a younger age. Now there's some new rules that are in place with the NCAA that is going to change that, so the pendulum will start to swing back the other way. We will see that in the next couple of years, but right now colleges are or have been recruiting players and at least verbally committing to players at very young ages, as young as grade 7 and 8. So in America, a lot of these prep programs will break down their teams to a U19 level and then a U16 level, or even a U14 level, where you'll see colleges go and watch the U16 players and work on committing them there. And then by the time they get to the U19 level, it's more about their development to get them ready for that transition to the college game. That's quite different in Canada. In Canada, most of the U19 teams that you'll see have players that are in either grade 9 or grade 10. And grade 11 and 12. Myself, our team, every year we have grade 9s, grade 10s, grade 11s, and 12s, and a mixed bag of all of them. I would say probably 25% in each grade. Whereas the teams that we play when we go and play against our American teams, like Naha, for example, we play in the U19 division of the JWHL. So it's their U19 team, which is all grade 12s and maybe a handful of grade 11s. Their U16 team will have all of their grade 9s and 10s. So our difference is that we carry younger players on our rosters. That's one of the big differences that we'll see. And I think there's some benefits to that and benefits to playing at your own age. So for the American side, when you're on the U16 level, you might be the best player on the ice as a grade 9, and it's easy for colleges to see that. Whereas for Canadian teams, if you're the grade 9 and you're playing with grade 12s or against a U19 team that might even have a post-grad player, you're playing against 20-year-olds, you might not be the best player on the ice, but you're playing against the best, so you're developing better skills and probably going to become a better player down the road because of those challenges. I think that's probably, in my opinion, the biggest difference between the US and the Canadian programs. And then how that affects the recruiting standpoint, it really just depends on each college and all of their scouts and what they're watching. Most Division I coaches are aware of that difference, so they know when they're watching a U16 American team and they're watching a grade 9 really stand out on the ice, that's to be expected. But if they're watching a Canadian team and they're watching a grade 9 player, they know that she's not going to be lights out the best kid on the ice. But if you put her with her own peers at her own age, she probably would be the best kid out there. So it's just something that they're aware of and are cognizant when they're watching, to keep that in mind. I think that would be, at least in my opinion, probably the biggest difference.
Great. All right, so let's focus now on actual development of your players at Balmoral Hall. So like at a really basic level, say over a 2-week period, 1 week where it's a game week and another week where there's no games. Talk to me about what training that they are doing on ice and off ice, how many hours, where is it at, who's it with? That would be really helpful for folks to understand.
Yeah. Absolutely. It is very, very extensive, comprehensive, and very involved. So for a normal week for us, we try to give them Mondays off, and that really works well for when we travel. Like I said, we play in the JWHL, so we don't play home games very often. If we do play any at all, it's one weekend a year. Otherwise, we're flying everywhere we go. We don't have any bus trips. It's impossible. You can't get to Boston fast enough from Winnipeg on a bus. So we fly to where we're going. So when we're traveling, we leave on a Thursday morning, fly out, play 2 games Fridays, 2 games Saturdays, 1 game Sunday, and then fly back home. They're arriving home, well past midnight. They need Monday to rest, and they're still expected to be at school on Mondays. So it's not like it's a full day off for them, but we just don't have practices or workouts on Mondays, so that they can get well rested and get back and caught up on all of their assignments from school. Then for Tuesdays, it's on ice and in the gym. We leave school a little early to get onto the ice for an hour and a half a day. And then right after our practices, they're up in the gym at our facility. Our facility is where the Winnipeg Jets practice. So the workout room that we use is where the Jets will train as well. So we have really top end gear and equipment up there for them, and good trainers that work with us that also work with the Winnipeg Jets. But on ice for us on Tuesdays, it's all about skill development. So we break our ice down into 6 or 8 stations, 2 players at a station, and we're working on any type of skill that we work on. It's all about repetitions to get them as many puck touches as we can. So that's usually what Tuesdays look like for us. Wednesdays, yoga in the morning, practice and workout afterwards. Thursdays, they get a sleep in, practice and then workout. And then always on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, if we're not traveling, we'll either have an exhibition game against a team within Winnipeg, which tends to be our AAA teams here within the Winnipeg Hockey League.
Is that boys or girls?
Girls.
Okay.
We tend to win. We should be winning all of those games, or most of them for that matter. We are stronger programs than what the AAA has to offer here, but it's still very competitive hockey, and it's awesome chance for a lot of our girls to play against some of their friends that they grew up playing with. So it's always fun to do that. And then if we're not playing an exhibition game, on Sundays, we do our skill days. So we'll have 2.5 hours of ice, and we split them up into smaller groups. So we'll have, maybe 8 of them on the ice for an hour. And that's a really great chance for us to work on their individual skill development. Because as any good coach will know, you're basically basing your skill assessments off of your full team, your positions, and then your individual players' strengths and weaknesses. So as a coach, I need to be able to identify each one of my defenders, what they're doing well on the ice and where their deficiencies are, and then make the adjustments needed to correct those and offer them the opportunity to get better. And the way that you do that is in small group settings. It's really tough as teams to give that individual attention to a player when you have 19 players on an ice and you're trying to run the flow of practice and keep everybody moving. But when you break it down and you only have 8 kids on the ice with 2 or 3 coaches, it's really easy to take 1 player or 2 players and pull them aside and work with them for 20-30 minutes on whatever their deficiencies are. Or sometimes you want to pump the kids up and you want to work on their strengths and make them feel a little bit more confident and continue to grow those areas as well. So I think one of the big differences that we'll see from our program that I'm seeing from a lot of different programs in Manitoba and across Canada is our focus on individual skill development, as opposed to the idea of winning at all costs. I really don't spend as much time as most coaches do on our power play, on our breakout, on our neutral zone forecheck. And that's much to the dismay of many. I get lots of dads, especially, that tell me, oh, well, we got to spend more time on our power play, because we always have parents watching practices. And I say, it might not be the best power play setup in October, but because we're working on fundamental and technical skills all year long, by March, by playoffs, we're going to have the best power play in the league, because we have all of the foundations needed to be able to execute that power play.
Well, actually,
and a big part of where,
sorry, that's a good point. No, how do you draw the line between development versus winning over the course of the season?
Yeah, I think so. I've been fortunate to work with both Hockey Manitoba and Hockey Canada for my last 7 years. And I'm actually one of Hockey Canada's female mentor coach developers for our country right now. And that's been a really great eye-opening experience for me to see what Hockey Canada is really trying to implement and promote across our country for player development. And it's something that it really is going to take a lot of buy-in from more coaches, because right now there is just such a heavy emphasis on the idea of winning. And that's creating all of these short-term goals and short-term visions, and then long-term problems for players. We have drawbacks and setbacks of kids that don't have proper foundational fundamentals, good motor abilities, good flexibilities, all of those things that we're seeing because their coaches are focused on their power play and on their breakout. And that's really not important. What I try to remind my when I do these clinics and I teach other coaches, it's a really good benchmark is, if you're not getting paid to be a coach, if your livelihood doesn't depend on winning games, then winning shouldn't matter. If you're not Paul Maurice with the Jets, if you're not, whoever else in the AHL, in a college environment where your job is to win hockey games and win championships so that you can keep your job, then winning shouldn't matter to you. And that even goes for myself. This is my job, but my bosses don't care if I win games. They care that I develop my players. They care that my kids get better, and they care that they get opportunities to go off and play at the next level. So it's just a really, it's easy for me to say that because I have the support that I need from my school that really allows me to focus on player development. But I also feel that it inadvertently also affects the way that my players respond. They know that I don't care about winning games, so it just takes the pressure off of them. We could be playing against Naha, one of the best teams we play every year, or we could be playing against a AAA team within the city that we should win all the time. I don't care if we win or lose. I care that we're working hard. I care that we develop our skills. I care that we're getting better and better each game. And then that takes the pressure off of them to win and to meet my expectations and to meet their parents' expectations even. So since I started implementing that, it's been just a unbelievable change in the culture of how our team functions and how we perceive wins and losses. When we lose games, after games in the dressing room, we're talking about what are we learning from it? What did we do wrong? What are we going to work on when we get back? That's another thing that I do as a coach that I think people are shocked by. I get input from my players. Let's hear what do you want to work on? What do you think we did wrong? It's not just about me, it's about all of us as a unit. So it's really been remarkable for me. So I couldn't, if I could give one take home for any coach watching this today, it's to take the element of winning out of your whole repertoire, and it'll really fundamentally change the way that you coach.
So if I'm a parent thinking about sending their kid to come play at Balmoral Hall and go to school at Balmoral Hall, what would the expectation be in terms of how you work with that player over 3 or 4 years, where they kind of benchmarking wherever they come in? Where should they expect what would the plan look like for that 3 or 4 years of development?
Absolutely. Great question. I like that you say 3 or 4 years too, because that's exactly how long I want to work with players. I really enjoy taking kids in at the younger ages in grade 9 or 10, because I feel like the longer time I get with them, the more outcome we'll see at the end. But we basically break it down to 3 different pillars that we look for, like objective changes that we can see. So one is academically. They'll receive the top education in Canada. They'll receive all of the supports that they need, whether it be for university guidance, whether it be for SAT, ACT prep for students that are looking to go to the States. In Canada, we don't do standardized testing the same way that Americans do. So we need to really prep our hockey players to know what to expect when they get into the SAT room and they have to take that monstrous 4-hour, 5-hour exam, whatever it was. I blocked it out because it was awful. But we work very extensively on our academics, so you'll see improvements there, regardless of your intellectual abilities. Just coming to our school, we certainly found that all of our girls have come in and received higher marks by the time they left our program to the time that they started. And then obviously athletically, that is a whole umbrella of stuff that we're looking at, whether it be their technical skills, our development on their puck handling, skating, passing, shooting, checking skills, one-on-one battles, whether it be their hockey IQ, ability to read plays, to make anticipations, to look 1 or 2 plays ahead to what's happening. That's a really tough skill to acquire, and even a tougher skill to teach. But that's something that we aim to do with all of our players, and a really big way that we utilize and do that is based off of video. Something that I can't stress enough how important that is for coaches to use, to be able to watch yourself in the moment in the game. It's tough to do it in the heat of the moment when you have to make a decision in a split second. It's a lot easier when you're looking back on the video afterwards and you can break it down frame by frame and see what went wrong. Did I not shoulder check there? Did I hold on to the puck too long? Did my partner not call for that pass quick enough? Whatever it is, and then you make your adjustments and changes that way. And then another big component that we work on for players that I think it's an intangible that's really tough to pinpoint, but it's confidence. In the female game, it's really, really tough to play well if you're not playing confidently. And so what I really try to encourage our players to do is to take the pressure off of trying to impress coaches, impress scouts, or impress, myself, and focus on, do they feel confident? Do they believe that they can do this? Because if they think they can, or they think they can't, they're right. And so again, it's just going back to trying to build up our players, teach them those proper mindsets and those good habits. We do a lot of work with either like mental skills coaches. We have a meeting on Friday with a psychologist who's another alum from the school. We meet with her every Friday to talk about mental mind checks. How are we mentally astute in our game, and making sure that we're being positive with our frame of mind. We work on skills like parking, leaving, bad shifts behind you. Don't think about them in the heat of the game. We can get back to that and deal with it later, but we focus on the next shift, one shift at a time. So that's another element that I think it's not easy to write that in a report card, let's say, like your confidence is through the roof right now, but that's an area that I think a lot of our players would say that they've really gained good insight and value in. And that goes back to inherently, they have to believe that they can do it. And that confidence doesn't come from somebody else. I can teach them and give them all the praise in the world, but if they aren't confident in their own abilities, it's not going to translate. So that would be probably the full scope of the umbrella for the on-ice athletic piece. And then the final pillar, then I think this is the most important one for me, is the character. The idea that we're working, I'm going to send off better athletes, better students, but I need to make sure that I'm sending, when these girls get ready for that college level, I'm sending them off as the best people that they could possibly be. Good Samaritans, supportive, considerate, conscientious, and self-assured in their own abilities.
Nice. So as they approach the end of their career at Balmoral Hall, what role do you play as the coach or the coaching staff in helping them figure out what's next? Specifically, youth sports or the Canadian University women's hockey programs in Canada, or potentially going south of the border to schools in the United States.
Yeah, I'd say I wear all different hats while here at BH. Obviously, my first one is as a head coach, but I'm also 17 players, different player agents, basically. So I do a lot of the work with recruiting for our girls, and that starts from the time they come here. Actually, I would say it even starts before then. I get lots of colleges that call me, and they're just yesterday I was talking with a school that was talking to me about 07s and 08s. And that's crazy to think that we're talking about kids that are that young. They're not even at my school or a part of my program yet. But I know all of those kids, at least within Manitoba, because that's what I'm doing too. I'm also recruiting and watching younger kids to see who are the top players that are going to be coming up and eventually one day playing for me as a Blazer. So when those schools call me, I'm giving them the insight on the top kids in Manitoba that are at the late peewee, early bantam ages before they even come to me. And some of them don't end up even coming to BH, let's say, but that doesn't change the fact that I want to promote women's hockey for all girls to have an opportunity. So that's where it starts, is even before kids come to BH, I'll often be recruiting for them, just because I'm a part of Hockey Canada and Hockey Manitoba. And I think a lot of scouts understand that I know the full picture of what's going on here in our province. And then when they get here, it starts early. It's a lot of conversations with different programs. And now, from an American standpoint, it's changed since the new rules were implemented in 2019 about how coaches can recruit and how early they can talk to players. So that has certainly changed things. But overall, they can send general interests and questionnaires for players to answer, so we can get an idea of which schools are interested in which players. And then come June 15th, for my grade 10s, for example, I'll be spending my full day, I'm sure, on the phone answering calls from all the different schools that are interested in all the different players. And then from there, we start to shortlist and look through all of the pros and cons for everything from how far is it away from home? Is it an Ivy League school where there's not a full ride potential, but it's financial aid? Is it a big school? Is it a state school like Penn State where there's 30,000? Or is it a smaller school like Niagara where mine was a 3,500 undergrad population where all of my professors knew me by name and came to the hockey games. There's all of these different pros and cons, and information that these players will have to decide. And it's different for each player. For every kid has different needs. I think of my goalie a few years ago, Corinne Schroeder, who came from Elm Creek, Manitoba, which nobody knows where Elm Creek is because it's a population of 200. And she's at Boston University in a huge campus, in a huge program, in her 4th year, starting goalie, loving life. And that was really important for her, was she wanted to go to a big school in a big city to get that experience because she didn't have it there growing up. So every kid is different, but for us, it starts really young with our girls, and then all the way through to grade 12. And then once they are signed and committed, it's prepping them now for those next steps of what are the coaches looking for. I spend a great deal of time after my kids have committed talking with the coaches to see what role do you want them filling in, what skills do you need them to be improving on before they get there, what are the things that you want to see me working on with them so that I can make them the most well-rounded player by the time they get to you. And then even past that, after they're gone on, again, just yesterday, I was on the phone with a college that was talking with me about a player that's in her 2nd year with them. Her and I had a really great relationship, and he just wanted some advice for how he could get through to her about some stuff that was going on. And I love that the fact that my girls have graduated on. She hasn't been in our program for 2 years, but still I'm connected with her through the coach that she's working with now. It's different for Canadian and American schools, as you're well aware, because American schools are just recruiting at a younger age. In Canada, for U Sport, most schools are recruiting girls in their grade 11 or grade 12 year. So for example, we have 6 girls that are going U Sport next year and in grade 12 with us. And so that recruiting process starts a little later. For a lot of them, it didn't start until this grade 12 year for schools showing interest. And that's just the difference between the programs and what they're able to offer. There's a lot more resources and revenue available for NCAA than there is for U Sport. So the top end U Sport schools, they can compete with American schools, but for the most part, they have to wait until those grade 10, grade 11, D1 kids commit before they can start looking through what's left to make their decisions.
Got it. And so that kind of also then gets into the reality of where we are today, which is COVID affecting recruiting and affecting ice time and things like that. So how has COVID affected you guys both on the ice and off ice in terms of recruiting for this season?
Yeah, it's just so many unknowns right now with COVID. I think that's the best way that I can surmise this is it's just so unknown. This is unprecedented. I've dealt with lots of different changes in the environment in the hockey world, but nothing like this has ever come close to something like this. So the unknown and the uncertainty, I think, was keeping me up at night, to be quite frank. Early on when this was happening, I wasn't sure how is this going to affect our players. The girls that I have that are in the States right now that I was skating with all summer, they weren't sure if they were going to be able to go back to UConn, St. Cloud, BU, any of the schools that they're at right now. It was just really scary and uncertain. So the way that it's affected us on ice is obviously right. I mean, right now we're not skating at the moment because of the restrictions for our province. We're hoping that come January that will get cleared and we'll get back to playing. And it's affected different areas of the world at different moments. So I'm hoping that we'll get back to the green light to play soon. But regardless of that, I feel like overall, the fact that everything has been postponed has extended the eligibility for a lot of 4th year in the States and 5th year in Canada players. So I think that was a concern of mine is, are those players going to come back next year and then create a bottleneck for the graduating girls this year, this 2021 class? Are they not going to have as many opportunities to go off and play next year? Especially the 2021 class, but even 2022, 23, 24. It's going to have a 4-year effect long term. But right now, I'm really happy to see that. Again, I think it goes back to the idea that at the end of the day, hockey is a means to an end for education. What I'm seeing is a lot of those senior players are still making that decision to move on, and whether it's to go and play professional hockey in Europe or in the States, or to just move on to their master's degree, their post, if they're going to med school or law school or or even just starting their careers. There's lots of student athletes that are making that decision to continue on and not come back for that fifth or sixth year. It's also really hard on the body to play college hockey. So I think some of them are just like, yeah, we're ready to hang them up and move on to bigger and better things. So at least from my standpoint, I've seen in the last 2 months, all of my grade 12s are now committed and have homes to go to next year. So for me personally, that means I can sleep easy over the holidays, knowing that all of my girls are accounted for and have good homes to go off to. And
so
then
just to clarify, Sarah, does that mean all your players are going to go play college hockey or university hockey somewhere next year? That's great.
Yeah, it is. And it's really great. That's, an expectation that I have every year. But it's obviously extremely, means even more this year, given the current circumstances, because I know there's a lot of other prep programs here in Manitoba and AAA programs here in Manitoba that are not sending their players off, or at least at the moment, unfortunately.
Got it. And correct me if I'm wrong, the JWHL season is on hold until all this is done. This is cleared up. So are you hoping or anticipating that some type of season will take place, or is that in question?
Oh yeah, well, we have JWHL updates every second week with all of the coaches, which is really nice because our league is we are so close. I'm actually friends with all of the coaches that I coach against, which I think most of our players think it's awesome, because after the games, coaches are always laughing and talking. Even before games, between periods, we're very easygoing with each other, which I think is a very stark contrast to what most players see when coaches face off before a game. But we've been in contact immensely throughout the season about what our different plans are. And Kush with the Washington Pride, he's one of the founders of the league, and he's really spearheaded this idea of looking ahead and making plans A, B, C through Z. Right now we have so many different options that we're looking at, and whether we get to play in the States this year, I would say that that's likely not going to happen, but we have hopes of whether it's going to be just Canadian teams playing against each other while American teams play against each other. The idea of pushing the league further, if we don't start until February, well, then we'll play until June this year. We have the flexibility in that regard, so it's certainly not like any other year, but I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to salvage something, and if not, then we just start planning ahead for next year's season of what that's going to look like too. And I mean, knock on wood that things go well with this vaccine, that they are saying 95% effective, and hopefully we'll be able to resume to some sense of normalcy come 2021-2022 season.
Yeah. Amen. Hopefully that happens sooner than later. All right. This has been awesome, Sarah. So one last question for you. So what advice would you give parents who are trying to figure out the right path for their player in terms of prep school, club, hockey, just general being just on a college hockey path? What advice would you give?
That's a great question. I tell this to every single family that I talk to, whether it's young players coming in, because we have an academy for younger players. So I have families that have students that are young as grade 5 coming through, and as old as grade 12. I say the same message to everybody. Every player will have a niche that they are looking to fill. Every kid, every student is going to have different needs. Likewise, for when they go off to university, they're going to have all these different options that they have to choose from. One option is going to be the right fit for them. It might be Balmoral Hall. It might be another program. I'm happy either way. I want girls to be able to make their informed decision to follow their dreams, whichever way they choose to do that. So my advice to parents is do your homework, look into as many different programs as you can. It's not good enough to just call up the first hockey team that you know of and say, yeah, we want to sign here. Call up 7 of them. If you live in an area, know all of the closest 10 different hockey programs that there are available and call each one of them. Parents might not know this, but a lot of programs are restricted in what they can do in terms of player recruiting. And it's to protect the other leagues that are within different divisions. So for Hockey Manitoba, for example, I can't go out and call every single family that I'm interested in. Those families have to reach out to me. That's different again from state to state and country to country, but I think the easiest solution to that is just you as a parent pick up the phone and call the coach or call the team and see, is there spots available, and if so, start to learn more and more about each of these programs and what they have to offer. And then at the end of the day, keep this in the back of your head that eventually hockey will come to an end, and your daughter is going to have to go out into the workforce and have a good background and a good education to fall back on when that hockey chapter of her life ends and she is ready to move on to the next step. So keep that in mind when you're making these decisions, that hockey isn't the be all end all, and it's absolutely important, and it's going to open so many doors for so many women, but really you should focus just as much attention on the school when you're talking to different coaches and programs. You want that combination of school first and hockey close second.
Nice. Well, Sarah, I want to thank you so much. This has been awesome, very informative. I know I learned a lot as a parent, and wish you best of luck as you kind of navigate what's going on this season, and hopefully you'll get back on the ice in the new year.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. It's been really great chatting with you, and thanks for the opportunity to hear my 2 cents for whatever it's worth. I just hope that it resonates with some parent out there, and that they're able to help their daughter make the best educated decision going forward.
I'm sure it will, and if nothing else, it helped me, and I'm sure it'll help a whole bunch of other parents. So thanks again, Sarah.
Thanks, Ray.
I really want to thank Sarah Zacharias for coming on the podcast today. I learned a whole bunch about girls prep school hockey, and I hope you did too. And remember, if you got something out of today's podcast, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like, follow, subscribe, and leave us a review so we can help share this important hockey information with folks just like you.